In the suffocating stillness of Collins Café, everything seemed frozen as Andrew Collins spoke, his voice cold yet thunderous. "None of you knew that the owner of this place have been here all week, quietly observing everything." Every pair of eyes turned toward him, stunned. The video played in the middle of the cafe, exposing the entire dark scheme. Two employees whom everyone had trusted, Liam Parker and Sophia Brookshad, deliberately framed a devoted old dishwasher, Walter Benson, to push him out and profit for themselves. The evidence was undeniable, their cruel words, their dirty tricks. Everything played out loud and clear for all to see. The cafe erupted in outrage, and in the very place where he had once been mocked, Walter was now honored as a silent hero, the man whose quiet kindness had been lighting up the community for years without anyone noticing. Have you ever asked yourself what truly defines a person's worth? Money, status, or compassion, even when no one is watching? Join me on an emotional journey where truth is revealed, kindness is rewarded, and a lesson in human dignity becomes a guiding light for an entire community. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe to our channel to walk alongside us through this inspiring story. Now let's begin the story of Walter Benson and the rebirth of Collins Café. Andrew Collins pulled his worn-out baseball cap down low, nearly covering his entire face, as he pushed open the door to Collins Café. The familiar bell jingled overhead, but none of the employees glanced up at him, a sign that his disguise was working. The faded jeans, old plaid shirt, and 3-day stubble made him completely unrecognizable. For the past 15 years, Andrew had poured his heart into building this place, transforming a run-down diner into a cherished neighborhood landmark now, with 4 branches scattered across the city. But lately he rarely visited, consumed by business expansion meetings and investor gatherings. Although customer reviews remained excellent, Andrew couldn't ignore an unsettling reality. Employees kept quitting, and revenue at this flagship branch had mysteriously declined despite steady customer traffic. "Table for one," a waitress asked without looking up from her order pad. "I'll take the bar," Andrew replied, intentionally roughening his voice. He chose a seat at the corner of the bar where he could easily observe everything happening in the cafe. The lunch rush was at its peak. Waitresses rushed around serving tables, cooks shouted out orders, and the cash register rang constantly. Everything appeared normal on the surface, but Andrew's instincts told him something was off. That's when he noticed Walter Benson, the elderly dishwasher. While everyone else hurried around, Walter worked slowly, carefully, with remarkable precision. His thin hands expertly stacked plates and bowls. With his white hair and slender frame, Walter had to be in his 70s, yet his eyes beneath thick brows still shone with sharp alertness. "What can I get you?" A young cashier whose name tag read Sophia Brooks finally noticed Andrew's presence. "A turkey sandwich and a coffee." Andrew replied, sliding a $20 bill towards her. As Sophia keyed his order into the register, Andrew nodded subtly toward Walter. "Has he worked here long?" Sophia shrugged, rolling her eyes. "He's been hanging around forever. If you ask me, he should have retired ages ago." Andrew sipped his coffee and watched Walter for the next hour. The old man didn't pause for even a minute. Even when a clumsy waiter spilled an entire tray of dirty water near the sink, Walter simply cleaned it up without complaint. Remarkably, many regular customers greeted Walter by name as they passed the dishwashing area, and he always responded warmly with a smile or friendly greeting. Just before the lunch shift ended, Andrew witnessed something noteworthy. A young woman with 2 small children approached the register after finishing their meal. When she opened her wallet, her face turned pale. She whispered something to Sophia, causing the cashier to frown and wave over another employee. "Liam Parker." They exchanged brief, irritated words while the young mother grew increasingly embarrassed and her children watched her anxiously. From his position at the dish station, Walter silently observed the scene. Without hesitation, he dried his hands and approached the counter. Andrew couldn't hear their conversation clearly, but he saw Walter discreetly pull several bills from his shirt pocket and hand them to Sophia. The young woman sighed with relief, thanked him profusely, hugged her children, and hurried out. "That's the third time he's done that this week," Liam muttered to Sophia loud enough for Andrew to overhear. Sophia giggled softly. "Hell, probably go broke helping everyone. Rumor has it he even sleeps in that beat-up car out in the parking lot." Andrew tightened his grip on his coffee mug, anger rising within him. The shift manager, Emily Harris, whom Andrew vaguely remembered hiring 2 years ago, hurried past without noticing the exchange. Throughout the afternoon, Andrew continued to observe Walter kept working diligently, even past the end of his shift, meticulously cleaning overlooked corners. Twice more, Andrew saw him quietly covering customers' bills, a teenager whose card was declined, and an elderly man confused about menu pricing. Why does he keep doing that? Andrew quietly asked the middle-aged man sitting next to him, who introduced himself as David Turner. A CAF regular, David sighed. Walter's a rare good-hearted man. His wife died of cancer about 5 years ago, and the illness drained all their savings. He refuses charity, so despite severe arthritis, he keeps working. He shook his head sadly. The hardest thing to hear is these young employees bad-mouthing him. People like Walter, there aren't many left these days. That afternoon, as the sunlight outside gradually turned golden through the CAF's windows, Andrew Collins remained patiently seated at the counter, attentively observing. He noticed that Walter Benson occasionally grimaced in pain when bending over his hand, unconsciously rubbing his lower back. Yet, as he had done all day, the old man neither complained nor slowed his pace. When a young waitress accidentally dropped a full tray of dishes onto the floor, Walter swiftly appeared before she could panic, holding a mop and gently reassuring her. "It's okay, dear, everyone makes mistakes sometimes." However, as soon as Walter turned away, Liam Parker walked by, muttering loudly enough to be heard. Yeah, especially when useless old men refuse to move into a retirement home. The young waitress lowered her head in embarrassment, saying nothing in reply, while Liam strode away with a disdainful smirk. By 5 o'clock, the evening shift had begun. Walter's shift should have ended long ago yet. Andrew still saw him continuing to work this time, cleaning the grease trap, a dirty, exhausting task typically reserved for the night crew. "Walter, go home," Emily Harris called out loudly as she gathered paperwork, preparing to leave. "Let the next shift handle that." "Young Jake called in sick," Walter replied calmly. "I don't mind staying a little longer." Emily could only sigh, deciding not to argue further. Andrew had the intuition this wasn't the first time this had happened. As he sipped his third coffee, Andrew noticed Sophia Brooks and Liam Parker whispering at the far end of the counter. Their eyes darted around cautiously, occasionally stealing glances toward Walter. Their suspicious behavior gave Andrew a sinking feeling. Suddenly, Sophia frowned irritably, waving Liam over. They pretended to check the cash register, feigning increasingly worried expressions. Finally, Liam loudly announced, "Money's missing again." The CAF immediately fell silent. Emily Harris, about to leave, spun around sharply. "How much?" she asked, her voice tense. $42. Sophia quickly replied, intentionally raising her voice to attract attention. "Last week, $35 went missing on both Tuesday and Thursday. Exactly the same way," Sophia continued. Pointedly, Andrew saw Walter lift his head from the sink, confusion briefly crossing his weathered face. An uncomfortable chill ran down Andrew's spine. He realized he was witnessing the initial steps of a dirty conspiracy, The elderly man who had quietly spent his days helping others now stood silently beside the sink, entirely unaware that cold, accusing eyes were closing in on him. It wasn't only Andrew watching him, it was also those who were plotting to make him their scapegoat. Andrew Collins had come to Collins Café today, aiming to understand the reason behind declining profits, but what he'd uncovered was far more significant and profoundly painful. Watching the harsh kitchen lights illuminate Walter's weary face, Andrew silently resolved, whatever it took, he would uncover the truth. The following day, Andrew returned to Collins Café in the early afternoon, the cafe's quietest hour. Wearing the same disguise, he chose a table near the register, a spot where he could observe without drawing attention. Walter was already there, diligently working as always, though today his movements seemed slower. Andrew noticed him occasionally rubbing his wrist, as if trying to soothe a persistent ache. At the register, Sophia and Liam were again huddled together, whispering whenever the café emptied. Andrew ordered a slice of pie and coffee, pretending to read the newspaper, ears alert to their conversation. Only a few customers remained scattered about, along with one businessman engrossed in his laptop. The quiet atmosphere allowed Andrew to clearly overhear the pair's discussion. "You know," Liam sneered, "I checked it out. That old man, Walter Benson, has been stuck at that dish sink for 7 years straight. It's ridiculous." Sophia laughed. "All those years just washing dishes and scraping by on that pathetic salary." "Yeah," Liam continued, "and still he likes to play hero. Helping out that single mom yesterday, too, acting like he's spending some moldy old retirement savings." Andrew squeezed his coffee cup tightly, struggling to suppress the anger rising inside him. He had built this café with the dream of it being a place where everyone felt welcomed and respected, yet now his own employees were uttering such cruel words. "I bet," Sophia lowered her voice. "Conspiratorially, he probably sleeps in that beat-up old Buick," Liam snorted. "If not there, he probably curls up behind the supermarket to sleep." They chuckled mockingly to each other while not far away. Walter continued quietly scrubbing each plate, seemingly oblivious to the ridicule aimed at him. Either way, Sophia Brooks lowered her voice to a whisper. "He's becoming a problem. Emily's starting to notice the shortages in the register." Andrew Collins tilted his head, slightly straining to hear better. Liam Parker glanced around cautiously to ensure no one was paying attention, then spoke quietly. "Listen, I have a plan," he whispered. "We both know Walter Benson regularly slips money into the register whenever customers come up short. Emily only sees the mismatched numbers. She has no idea who adds or takes away cash." Sophia's eyes suddenly lit up as though she'd just understood something. "What if we made the shortages appear even worse?" she suggested excitedly. "Exactly," Liam nodded. "Well, make sure Emily catches Walter near the register at just the right moment. Then she'll believe he's the culprit." Andrew felt a cold shiver run down his spine. They weren't just mocking a devoted elderly man. They were actively plotting to frame him for personal gain. He turned the newspaper page, pretending to read while suppressing the rage boiling within, continuing to listen. But why, he silently questioned. The answer soon followed, because Liam explained, "I've got a cousin who needs a job. He's twice as fast as that old guy. Once Walter gets fired, I'll recommend him, and then we'll split the referral bonus. Besides," Sophia interjected, "I'm sick of seeing him shuffle around like some charity case. Customers are always fawning over him. Oh, Walter's so kind, Walter's so wonderful. It's nauseating." Tomorrow, Liam decided, when Emily does inventory, she'll be hyper-focused on the numbers. Well, help increase the missing amount and make sure Walter is the only one near the register. The two conspirators exchanged a quick high five, sealing their scheme, then dispersed as a family entered the café. Andrew sat frozen at his table, his coffee long gone cold. Anger and disappointment surged through him like crashing waves. Throughout the rest of the afternoon, Andrew continued to watch. Despite his evident exhaustion and pain, Walter worked carefully and devotedly. When a waitress accidentally broke a plate, he immediately stepped in quietly, helping her clean up and shielding her from Emily's irritated gaze. When the coffee machine clogged, it was Walter who silently fixed it, staying late without a single complaint. And just like yesterday, when a teenage customer's card was declined, Andrew again witnessed Walter discreetly handing money to Sophia so the boy could pay. Why does he keep doing that? Andrew wondered. He didn't have to wait long for the answer. Why bother? Liam mocked as Walter turned away. The old man simply shrugged, his voice deep and raspy, yet filled with determination. The boy's mother just lost her job. He doesn't want charity, but I know a single meal during tough times can turn someone's whole day around. Liam shook his head disdainfully, turning away while shooting Sophia a mocking look. When the clock struck 10 p.m., Andrew paid his bill and left the cafe. But instead of driving away, he parked his old sedan across the street silently, waiting. Nearly an hour later, Walter emerged from Collins Café's back door. In the darkness, he seemed even thinner. His steps, weary but dignified. The old Buick rumbled to life slowly, driving off into the night. Andrew started his car, keeping a safe distance with headlights off. He followed Walter through quiet residential neighborhoods out to the edge of town, past empty lots and old warehouses. Suddenly, Walter turned onto a small dirt road behind a commercial complex. Andrew's heart pounded as he continued to trail him. At the end of the dirt path, hidden behind thick bushes, stood a rundown trailer, so dilapidated it looked like it might collapse with a strong gust of wind. This was Walter's home. Walter parked, climbed 3 rotten wooden steps, and had to shove his shoulder against the stuck door. A weak ceiling light flickered on, revealing a cramped, suffocating space inside. Sitting in his car, Andrew felt a wave of shame wash over him. How could someone proud of Collins Café being a second family, not know one of his employees was living in such dire conditions? Unable to sit still under the crushing weight of guilt, Andrew returned to the café the next morning. Still in disguise, he approached an elderly couple, regular customers he'd often seen before the dishwasher. "Walter, what's his story?" Andrew asked, feigning casual curiosity. The elderly woman sighed softly. "He lost his wife, Martha, 5 years ago to cancer," she said sadly. "To pay for treatments, they had to sell their house and belongings. Even now," her husband added, "he still sends monthly payments for medical bills, though she's long passed." "Does he have any family?" Andrew pressed further. "He has a daughter living in Seattle," the woman replied. "She's begged him repeatedly to move in with her, but he refuses. He says he doesn't want to become a burden." Andrew fell silent. Inside him, a fierce new determination ignited. He would no longer allow Walter Benson to suffer any more injustice. He doesn't want to become a burden. The elderly woman repeated softly, her voice tinged with sadness. "A man of too much pride, if you ask me." Driving home that night, Andrew Collins knew for certain he could no longer stand by and watch Liam Parker and Sophia Brooks destroy a good man simply out of petty greed. He had to act, and he would act. All night, Andrew tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw Walter Benson's hunched figure, struggling to climb the decaying steps of that old trailer. The stark contrast between his own comfortable life and Walter's harsh existence cut into his heart like a painful wound. By dawn, a plan had clearly taken shape. In Andrew's mind, he made several phone calls, quietly organizing each step for the following day. An hour before opening, Andrew arrived at Collins Café. Sitting in his car, he quietly observed the employees arriving one by one. Walter came early as usual, the old Buick sputtering familiarly as it parked. Walter's posture remained steady, though clearly the previous night in that decrepit trailer had been anything but restful. Walter paused briefly, rubbing his aching back, then hurried inside, as always. Instead of entering immediately, Andrew drove to a small cafe nearby. There he'd arranged a meeting with David Turner, the regular customer who'd previously told him Walter's story. "Thank you so much for meeting me," Andrew said as he sat down still in his disguise. "I can't stop thinking about Walter's situation." David stirred his coffee slowly, then nodded. "I've known him for nearly 6 years. He began quietly. He started working at the cafe shortly after his wife passed away. They'd been sweethearts since high school." David continued, his gaze distant. "Married for 52 years. When she got cancer, it spread terrifyingly fast. Andrew listened silently. They had some savings, a nice little house on Maple Avenue. David said, but the medical bills piled up. Insurance would cover everything. Without hesitation, Walter sold the house, emptied their retirement savings, and even sold their last decent car. All just to extend her life by 8 more months. And he has no regrets." David said, his voice thick with emotion. "Walter once told me those were the most precious 8 months of my life, even if they were also the hardest." After his wife died, medical bills kept coming, but Walter refused to declare bankruptcy. To him, debts represented honor. Something owed must be paid. Only Collins Café, of the few places willing to hire an inexperienced 70-year-old, had given him a second chance. His hands ache, his back hurts, yet he still works twice as hard as younger employees. David sighed. "That run-down trailer is the best he can afford after paying off hospital debts and sending a little money to his daughter. She doesn't know the truth," David continued. "Walter sends her photos taken inside the cafe, telling her he's a manager here. He doesn't want her to worry." Each word struck Andrew deeply. He'd always prided himself on Collins Café being a second family for employees, yet quietly a decent man like Walter was struggling to survive. "There's more," David said softly, lowering his voice. "The land where he lives is about to be sold to new developers." Andrew sat upright sharply. "The developer has already issued notices. All residents must vacate in 60 days. Andrew felt his stomach twist. "He hasn't told anyone at the cafe?" David shrugged. "And I doubt he has anywhere else to go. Rent prices these days are astronomical." "Why doesn't he move in with his daughter?" Andrew asked. "Because of us," David replied simply. "He sees Collins Café as his home. The staff regular customers were his family now. He says helping others, Evan, when he himself has nothing, is what keeps him going." After sincerely thanking David, Andrew returned to Collins Café. The morning rush had begun. He chose his familiar table where he could observe everything clearly. Walter remained at the dishwashing station, diligently working occasionally, stepping out to help overwhelmed waitstaff. Though his movements were slow, his meticulousness never wavered. As for Liam Parker and Sophia Brooks, they had begun carrying out their plan. Andrew watched closely as Liam deliberately shortchanged customers, discreetly slipping bills into his own pocket. Sophia stealthily deleted transactions from the register after customers left. Each time they exchanged conspiratorial glances and occasionally shot malicious smiles toward Walter. The simmering anger within Andrew flared up fully, but he knew just a little longer. The moment to expose the truth was almost at hand. Andrew Collins felt his blood boil at the scene unfolding before him. Around 11 a.m., the young mother with 3 small children entered Collins Café, the very same woman Walter Benson had discreetly helped just 2 days before. She timidly approached the cash register to pay. Andrew noticed her counting every coin carefully, her face flushing with embarrassment when she realized she was still short a small amount. "I'm sorry," she softly told Sophia Brooks, struggling to remain calm. "I thought I had enough. Could I perhaps leave the tip money to cover the difference?" Sophia gave her a bitter smile. "Oh, no need," she replied sarcastically. "We still have the dishwasher's charity fund, don't we?" Then, deliberately raising her voice, Sophia called out, "Walter, we've got another customer who needs your charity." The entire cafe fell silent, the atmosphere suddenly oppressive. The young mother lowered her head in shame, her children glancing around confused, unsure what was happening. From the kitchen, Walter immediately wiped his hands and quickly came over. Without a single word of reproach or an irritated glance toward Sophia, he pulled out his wallet, gently handed the woman some cash. "No need to worry," he kindly said, as if this were perfectly normal. "Hope you and the kids have a lovely summer." The young mother thanked him tearfully, promising to repay him the following week after receiving her paycheck. But Walter simply smiled warmly, nodding and asking about the new job she'd recently applied for. Through his quiet kindness, he restored her dignity in front of everyone as the family left, managing to preserve at least some dignity. Andrew overheard Liam Parker whisper to Sophia, "Perfect. Another $15 to increase the shortage." Andrew had heard enough. He quietly stood up, left the caf, and made a short phone call, setting the final stage of his plan into motion, returning to Collins Café. Andrew saw Emily Harris emerging from the office, calculator in hand, looking tense. "The numbers aren't matching up," she announced. "We're nearly $100 short this week." Immediately, Liam stepped forward, feigning concern. "I've noticed some suspicious behavior near the register these past few days. Should we maybe check the security cameras?" Emily frowned. "The cameras broke a long time ago." "The owner hasn't approved the budget to replace them." Andrew silently noted this. There would certainly be a candid conversation with his regional manager about that after this incident. "Actually," Sophia interjected, her voice soft yet suggestive, "yesterday I noticed someone lingering around the register. Someone who has no reason to handle cash." Her gaze turned directly toward the dishwashing station. She didn't need to specify who she meant. It was clear to everyone. Emily's expression darkened. "You mean Walter?" she asked, a mixture of confusion and suspicion evident in her voice. Sometimes people become desperate, especially at that age. Liam chimed in, his tone falsely sympathetic. From his vantage point near the kitchen doorway, Andrew silently watched. Walter, the elderly man, remained absorbed in scrubbing dishes, his hands reddened from the hot water and chemicals, each movement meticulous and full of pride. Walter was entirely unaware of the despicable accusations now aimed at him. At that very moment, Andrew made his decision. Tomorrow would not merely be about exposing Sophia and Liam. Tomorrow he would overhaul the way Collins Café operated entirely, so no one like Walter would ever have to endure such hardship again. As he left the café, anger had replaced his initial heartache. Tomorrow the truth would come to light. Not just to punish these two despicable people, but also to correct Andrew Collins' own mistake, a mistake that had allowed a good man like Walter Benson to be treated unjustly under the very roof he'd once proudly built. The following morning, Andrew arrived early at Collins Café, preparing himself for this decisive day. Still in his worn, ordinary clothes, he selected his familiar table from which he could clearly observe both the cash register and the dishwashing area. At first, everything proceeded calmly. Walter arrived punctually, though he appeared even stiffer today than yesterday. Liam and Sophia came in together, whispering conspiratorially, occasionally exchanging subtle smiles. Emily anxiously moved back and forth between the kitchen and her office, burdened by concerns over the missing money. Precisely at 10:15, the doorbell jingled. A young woman stepped inside, holding the hand of her little daughter. Andrew smiled inwardly. The final piece of his plan had just arrived. A little girl, about 5 years old, wearing a patched-up old jacket, walked into Collins Café with her mother. They were dressed simply, but neatly. The faint signs of hardship evident in their worn-out shoes and faded clothes. The woman was Jessica Miller, a single mother struggling to make ends meet, someone Andrew Collins had contacted through a local charity. It wasn't an act. She was truly raising her daughter alone, working 2 jobs to survive. But today she agreed to assist Andrew's plan in exchange for educational support for her daughter. Jessica and her daughter Lily chose a table near the cash register. Sophia Brooks approached to take their order, wearing a standard service smile. "Just a grilled cheese sandwich for the little one and a small bowl of soup for me." Jessica requested gently. About 20 minutes later, when the meal was finished, Jessica went to the register. She opened her wallet, and her face immediately paled when she saw she didn't have enough money. "I'm sorry," she said softly to Sophia, her voice trembling with shame. "I thought I had enough. My card was declined yesterday due to a bank error, and it's still not fixed. I'm short by $15. Sophia's smile turned cold instantly. "Sorry, we don't give out free meals here," she said snidely. "Next time, count your money carefully before ordering." Jessica's eyes welled with tears. Little Lily looked up at her mother, confused. "Could I maybe wash dishes to make up for it?" Jessica asked, struggling to hold herself together. "I really have nowhere else to go. We already have a dishwasher," Sophia sneered. At that moment, from the kitchen, Walter Benson, who had quietly observed the entire exchange, wiped his hands on his apron and approached the counter with steady steps. "I'll take care of it," Walter said softly, pulling out his wallet. "No, really, sir, you don't have to." Jessica quickly declined, playing her role perfectly in the plan, but Walter simply smiled kindly. "Sometimes everyone needs a little help, and someday you'll help someone else in return." He handed Sophia the money to cover the balance, then turned to Jessica, chatting warmly about her job hunt and Lily's summer plans, transforming an embarrassing moment into a warm human exchange. Andrew watched everything unfold, knowing the trap he had set was now closing. Less than 10 minutes later, Liam Parker hurried over to Emily Harris, who was busy reviewing invoices at the counter. "I think we should double-check cash drawer number 1. Liam said loudly enough for others nearby to hear. Emily's face darkened. "That's impossible." She shook her head. "I just balanced it an hour ago." Sophia quickly chimed in, pretending to be nervous. "I felt something was off, too. When that woman was short earlier, I noticed Walter lingering near the register." Her meaningful glance was aimed squarely at the dishwashing station. "You mean he took money?" Emily asked, her voice filled with doubt. Liam shrugged, feigning reluctance. Just saying what I saw. If only the cameras worked." Worry lined Emily's face. "If someone's stealing, I need to know immediately. The owner's already asking about the missing funds," she said, her voice trembling. "Maybe we should do a surprise cash count," Sophia suggested, her eyes flashing with calculation. "Right now, before anyone can fix the numbers." Emily bit her lip, then nodded. They began counting the cash, with Liam and Sophia hovering nearby. Andrew barely needed to watch closely to see the moment they faked their shock at the missing amount. $37 short, Emily announced, her face pale. "This week's loss totals over $100 now. I'm sorry, but..." Liam quickly jumped in with, "Everything we've seen. I don't think we have a choice." Andrew clenched his fists under the table. He watched as Emily, visibly pained, straightened up and walked toward the kitchen, where Walter was diligently scrubbing dishes, completely unaware of the storm about to crash down on him. Following behind her were Liam and Sophia, struggling to hide their gleeful expressions. Walter, Emily called, "I need to speak with you." The old man looked up, his eyes flashing with surprise at the three people facing him, their faces tense and severe. "Is something wrong, Miss Emily?" he asked calmly. "The cash drawer keeps coming up short," Emily said, her voice thick with emotion. "And today, we're missing nearly $40 right after you were seen near the register." Walter's face immediately stiffened. Shock, then pain flickered across his weathered features. "You think I stole it?" he asked hoarsely. "We've seen you near the register several times without reason," Liam said, pretending to sound regretful. "And every time money disappears," Sophia added sweetly, her false concern dripping with malice. Walter stood motionless, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "I was just trying to help customers who couldn't pay," he whispered. "I put money in, not took it out." But his words fell into the cold silence of a courtroom with a verdict already decided. Andrew Collins clenched his fists tighter. He knew in just a few more minutes the truth would explode and the traitors standing so smugly would finally face the consequences. I put money into the register, not took it out." Walter Benson stammered, his bewildered eyes scanning the room. Sophia Brooks sneered, "Oh, how convenient, especially on a dishwasher's measly salary like yours." Walter's calloused hands trembled slightly as he grasped the full weight of their accusations. A deep, silent pain gripped his heart. "I have never stolen," Walter said hoarsely. "I have never taken from anyone, and certainly not from Collins Café. This place saved me during the hardest years of my life." Emily Harris stood frozen, torn between her faith in Walter and the cold, unforgiving numbers. "Walter, I've always trusted you," she said, her voice cracking. "But numbers don't lie, and we have multiple witnesses saying they saw you near the cash drawer without reason." Walter turned confused, scanning the faces around him. His anguished gaze settled on Liam Parker and Sophia Brooks, who quietly nodded, confirming the accusations. As the bitter truth sank in, Walter's face grew heavy with sorrow, making even Andrew Collins feel a tightness in his chest. Yet Walter did not protest or accuse. He simply stood there, his back straight, his eyes deep with sadness, but full of dignity. "I understand," Walter said softly. "I suppose you want me to resign." "I'm sorry, Walter," Emily said, almost choking. "But according to company policy, I have to terminate your employment immediately." A suffocating silence descended. Over Collins Café staff and customers alike fell silent, whispers of shock and disbelief rippling across the room. No one could believe that a decent man like Walter was being dismissed as a thief. Liam immediately stepped forward, unable to hide his glee. "I'll escort him to get his things." But a sharp voice cut through the air. "That won't be necessary." All eyes turned toward the source of the voice. Andrew Collins stood up from his seat, and for the first time since he entered the caf, he no longer slouched to appear inconspicuous. He removed his worn baseball cap, revealing the commanding, confident bearing of a leader. When Emily recognized him, her face turned ghostly pale. "Mr. Collins, I didn't know you were here. If I had known, I would have." "No need to explain," Andrew interrupted, his voice low, but full of authority, freezing the entire caf. "I am not here for a routine inspection," he declared, his words ringing clearly through the silence. "I've been here all week, posing as a customer, observing everything." His piercing gaze swept across the staff, finally landing heavily on Liam Parker and Sophia Brooks. "And what I've witnessed has truly opened my eyes." Liam gave a strained smile, trying to explain, "We were just following procedure in handling the theft." Sure enough, Andrew cut him off. His voice didn't need to be loud. Its firmness alone made the room feel as if it had frozen solid. Walter looked at him bewildered, clearly not understanding what was happening. Andrew turned to address the entire caf staff and customers alike. "For those who don't know him, Andrew Collins, founder of the Collins Café chain, 15 years ago. From day one, my principle has been customers are family, employees are family." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. "Someone mentioned the security cameras here were broken. Funny, because 2 days ago I had a brand new system installed, one that records both video and audio." Emily's face drained of color, while Liam and Sophia began sweating visibly. "Let's have a look, shall we?" Andrew said coldly, then connected the device to the wall-mounted TV. Clear footage appeared. The first clip showed Liam pocketing change after a customer transaction. Next, Sophia was seen deleting transactions after customers left. Then came the audio recording, Liam and Sophia whispering, "If we blame Walter, Emily will fire him. Then, I'll get my cousin hired. And, well, split the referral bonus." A collective gasp echoed through the cafe. Emily looked ready to collapse. Several regular customers stood up, glaring angrily at the two employees who had just been exposed. Wee Sophia stammered, tears streaming down her face. "Save it," Andrew said coldly. He turned to Walter, his expression softening. "Mr. Walter Benson, I owe you an apology. Not just for today, but for failing to protect good people like you sooner. If we pin it on Walter, Emily will have to fire him. Then I'll get my cousin hired, and we'll split the bonus." Liam Parker's voice rang out clearly from the video recording. A wave of outrage swept through Collins Café. Several regular customers stood up, their faces flushed with anger. Emily Harris covered her mouth in shock, unable to believe what she was hearing. "There's more," Andrew Collins said coldly, pressing the fast-forward button. The screen now showed footage of Walter Benson quietly slipping money into the register after helping struggling customers, footage of him staying late after hours to clean neglected areas, footage of him shielding younger colleagues from customer complaints and taking the blame for mistakes he hadn't even made. Finally, the screen stopped on footage showing Liam and Sophia Brooks deliberately causing the cash shortages, the very evidence they had tried to use to frame Walter that morning. All the so-called evidence from this morning, Andrew declared, voice tight with controlled fury, was fabricated. The only theft happening at Collins Café, he continued, was carried out by the very people. Loudly accusing others, Liam's face turned ghostly white. He tried to stammer. "Sir, it was all just a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding." Andrew's voice sliced like a blade. "You call plotting to frame a devoted man stealing from the cash drawer, mocking someone who's endured more hardship than you ever will. Misunderstanding." Sophia began sobbing, mascara streaming down her face. "We didn't mean to," she choked out. "You didn't mean to get caught is what you mean," Andrew concluded coldly. He turned toward Emily, his voice heavy but calm. "Did you know Emily Walter has been living in a broken-down trailer behind the cafe because he's still paying off his late wife's medical bills?" Emily shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "Did you know he often skips meals to save money to help poor customers, or that he endures excruciating arthritis pain every day but never complains because he refuses to become a burden?" The cafe was utterly silent. The truth was too bitter to bear, and the fault doesn't lie only with them. Andrew said, his gaze sweeping across all the employees. "It's my fault for neglecting this place long enough to let the values I built be destroyed right under my nose." Suddenly, Liam bolted toward the door, trying to escape, but two burly regular customers quickly blocked his way. "You're not going anywhere," Andrew ordered, his voice like cold steel. "The police will want to have a word with you about this theft." Right on cue, two police officers entered as prearranged. They quickly handcuffed Liam and Sophia amidst the furious glares of everyone present. "You have no right to do this," Liam shouted, struggling. "You have the right," Andrew said calmly. "The right to remain silent. And I suggest you exercise it." Sophia collapsed in tears as she and Liam were escorted out, their faces drained of all color, becoming a living lesson for everyone in the cafe. When things finally settled down, Andrew approached Walter, who was still standing there, quietly holding a dish towel. "Mr. Walter," Andrew said gently, "I owe you an apology, not just for today, but for failing to ensure you receive the respect you deserve." The old man looked up, his eyes still clear, without a trace of resentment. "No need to apologize, Mr. Collins," Walter said, his voice deep and warm. "You didn't know, but now you do, and you acted." But Andrew shook his head. "Not knowing isn't an excuse." He replied, "I promise you, from now on, everyone here will know exactly who you are and what you stand for." At that moment, the entire cafe erupted in thunderous applause. Customers stood clapping loudly, giving Walter Benson the standing ovation he had deserved all along. Outside, the police car carrying Liam and Sophia disappeared into the distance. Inside Collins Café, a priceless lesson was etched into the hearts of everyone present. True worth isn't measured by status but by kindness and integrity. The customers who were present that morning at Collins Café hadn't come just to watch the drama unfold. They had come to show their support for Walter Benson, the man whose quiet kindness had touched the heart of the entire community. Andrew Collins was there early, dressed not in his usual sharp suit, but in a simple shirt. He wanted everyone to see that from today, things would be different, that he would no longer be the absentee boss, but a present leader standing alongside his employees. Walter arrived right on time, as he always did. His posture was a bit stiff, and his face showed clear bewilderment as he noticed the warm smiles, the friendly handshakes, and the looks of heartfelt goodwill from regular customers. He nodded politely, trying to hide the surge of emotion swelling in his chest. From behind the counter, Andrew called out, "Walter, I'd like to see you in the office for a moment." The caf fell silent. Everyone watched Walter's measured steps as he made his way toward the office door. Everyone knew that this conversation would decide his future inside the office. Andrew gestured for Walter to sit down, his expression serious but his eyes warm. "I spent all of last night thinking," Andrew began, "about your situation, about your character, and about how the business I built has drifted so far from its original principles." Walter sat up straight, his rough hands clasped together on his knees. "Mr. Collins," he said in a low voice, "I've always been grateful for this job. It came to me at a time when no one else would hire an old man like me. And that's exactly why I wanted to have this conversation today." Andrew said, leaning forward, "You've worked here for 7 years, often doing the work of 2 people, always volunteering to stay late without a word of complaint and demonstrating a level of dedication that surpasses many younger employees." He slid a folder across the desk toward Walter. "This isn't just a thank you. It's a recognition of your value to this company." Walter opened the folder, squinting at the contents. I don't understand," he stammered. "It's very simple." Andrew smiled. "Starting today, you are promoted to front hall manager. The work will be lighter, your salary will be significantly increased, and you'll receive full benefits. No more back-breaking tasks that risk your health." Walter stared at the appointment letter, unable to believe his eyes. "But I don't have any management experience," he said hesitantly. "You have something far more valuable." Andrew replied, his eyes shining with admiration. "Integrity and compassion. Skills can be taught, but those qualities cannot." Before Walter could respond, Andrew pushed another folder toward him. "And there's one more thing," he said quietly. "I contacted your daughter Sarah last night." Walter immediately looked up, his face paling. "You told her about me," he whispered. "About everything." Andrew nodded, about the broken-down trailer, the hospital debts you're still paying off, and how you've quietly endured all of it alone. Tears glistened in Walter's eyes. "I didn't want to be a burden to her," he choked out. "Your daughter," said Andrew said, gently smiling. "That love is never a burden, it's an honor." He patted the second folder. Inside are the documents transferring ownership of a small house, just 3 blocks from here. It's not fancy, but it's cozy, clean, and most importantly, it's yours, no mortgage, no debts. Consider it a 7-year overdue bonus. Walter's hands trembled as he opened the folder. Printed clearly on the deed was his name, Walter Bensonus, the owner of the new home. "Mr. Collins, I can't accept this," he stammered. "If you don't," Andrew said firmly, "then I'll feel even more indebted to you, and that's not all. I've also cleared the remaining hospital debts for your late wife. From now on, you have nothing left to worry about." At last, the strength Walter had held on to for so long broke. He wept openly, the tears carrying the weight of years of silent endurance. "Why are you doing all this for me?" he asked, his voice cracking. Andrew, his own voice, thick with emotion, answered, because you reminded me business isn't just about profit or expansion. It's about people." He stood up and offered his hand. "Thank you, Walter. Not just for your years of service, but for teaching me how to be a better boss and a better man." When they stepped out of the office, the entire CAF erupted into thunderous applause. Employees, customers, everyone rose to their feet, clapping passionately for their quiet hero. At the counter, Emily Harris wiped away tears, a bright smile spreading across her face. And yet, this wasn't the final thing Andrew Collins had in store for Collins Café. Standing before the gathered employees and customers, Andrew Collins raised his voice, his eyes filled with unwavering determination. "Starting today, all branches of Collins Café will implement a new policy, a living wage, full health care benefits, and an emergency fund available to any employee facing hardship." He paused for a moment to scan the room. "No one working here should have to choose between paying bills or helping others. At Collins Café, we will support each other like family." Cheers and applause erupted throughout the CAF. Walter Benson stood beside Andrew, his face still dazed, struggling to fully absorb the magnitude of the changes unfolding in his life. From among the customers, Amy Miller, the young mother Walter had helped many times, stepped forward carrying her 2 small children. She carefully pulled out an envelope. We collected a little something for you, Mr. Walter," she said, her eyes brimming with tears. "It's not much," she murmured, "but it comes from the heart." Andrew smiled warmly and raised his hand to gently stop her. "All of Walter's needs have already been taken care of," he said reassuringly, "but I have a better idea for the money you've generously contributed." He turned back to Walter, his voice full of warmth. "Let's use that money to establish the Walter Benson Community Fund-a-Fund to assist anyone facing overwhelming medical bills or life hardships, just like you once endured." Walter looked around the room, his eyes sweeping across the familiar faces, the customers he had quietly helped, the children he had watched grow up, the young co-workers he had silently protected. In every smile, every glance, Walter could see the gratitude for the silent kindness he had given without ever asking for anything in return. In the weeks that followed, Walter gradually settled into his new home and adapted to his role as front hall manager. Though he no longer needed to work to survive, he chose to continue, not for money, but to help nurture the beloved community he was a part of. To Walter Benson, Collins Café was no longer just a workplace. It was family, it was community, it was his life's purpose. Each morning as he stepped through the familiar glass doors, Walter was no longer the old dishwasher living in a beat-up car. He was welcomed as the man who had changed not only his own fate, but also the culture of an entire business and the hearts of an entire community. As for Andrew Collins, he kept his promise. He continued to visit the branches regularly, personally speaking with employees and customers, ensuring that the spirit of humanity he had always dreamed of would never be forgotten again. Andrew's reforms quickly spread across the entire system, turning Collins Café into a symbol of kindness within the service industry. A place where compassion and decency were valued just as highly as profit. As for Liam Parker and Sophia Brooks, their names became cautionary tales throughout the industry. No one wanted to hire those who had become infamous for deceit and betrayal. There are moments when we realize what truly builds a sustainable business isn't a thick revenue report, but the ordinary people who quietly sow seeds of kindness every single day. Walter Benson, the man once scorned for his age and poverty, proved that, with steadfast determination and a sincere heart, you can change an entire community. And Andrew Collins, the owner who had the courage to face his own mistake, showed us that true success begins with gratitude by putting people above profit. The story of Walter and Collins Café didn't just end with justice. It opened a new journey, a place where kindness is spread, where every worker is genuinely valued. If you believe that compassion can change the world, if you believe that fairness and decency still exist in the simplest of places, join us in sharing this story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to help spread these positive values to even more people. See you in the next stories, where kindness is always the guiding light.